Our first guest is Edward Swenson. He is the Chief Deputy Director and Chief Operating Officer of the Department of Motor Vehicles, which many of us know as DMV. Edward was appointed Chief Deputy Director in June of 2023 after serving as DMV Assistant Chief Deputy Director. In his role, Ed acts as Chief Operating Officer and directly manages administration, investigations, and legal affairs while ensuring effective delivery of services to customers through various DMV service channels. Ed was Senior Director of Global Services Logistics Planning at Cisco, overseeing its global customer experience leadership team. During his more than 30-year career in the technology and utilities industry, Ed has held positions in engineering, software development, customer assurance, product security, incident response, and business development. And lastly, Ed earned Master's of Science degrees in Management and Electrical Engineering from Stanford University. With that, I'll go ahead and virtually pass you the mic, Ed. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex, for that kind introduction. I'll share a little bit more about myself and how I came to DMV, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
My career started at the phone company, Pacific Bell in California, and it was a very interesting time after divestiture. I was sharing yesterday with some folks that the fellow that wrote Dilbert, Scott Adams, was our PC support person. And so I knew Awali and Alice and some of those characters. So the idea of a dysfunctional large organization was, first thing I experienced in my career. Although Pacific Bell, and the Bell system in general had a great mission of universal service and, really on the edge of technology. It exposed me to the internet, so I'm very grateful for that. And also I had a chance to work in Japan, which gave me a very different spin on customer service, customer experience, what to expect as a customer. When I came back from Japan, still working at Pacific Bell, I was always disappointed every time I went to a bank or any kind of store and how terrible the service was compared to, the kind, thoughtful service just routine in Japan. After a few years, I actually retired from Pacific Bell. They had a package, a buyout. So after 5 years, I was unemployed and was lucky enough to catch on at Cisco, which made equipment that was crucial to the development of the internet. And the job I started in was technical support, which involved talking to customers on the phone and figuring out their problems and helping to make them successful. So it really ignited a passion in me for problem solving, as well as, combined with my experience in Japan, sort of empathy for the customer, which, I hope I retain to this day at some level. There I met Steve Gordon, who's now the director of DMV. I started, a year or so before him, and he looked up to me as a senior engineer, which was interesting. I had the good fortune of working with him many times at Cisco in different roles, and really appreciate his style. One anecdote I'd like to share about Steve is his idea of customers was really formed when he worked in college as a waiter. And if you're a waiter, your paycheck depends on treating customers well. And he shared with me that you have to anticipate what customers want. If you wait till they ask you to fill up the water glass, you're not going to get as good of a tip as if you fill it up beforehand. And so that's one lesson that stuck with me about Steve. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing now a little bit. When Steve came to DMV, this was 2018, 2019, DMV was really in a crisis mode. You may recall long lines, be on the local news every night that, you'd have a 5-hour wait at the DMV. And that was a confluence of factors, probably the last of which was the Real ID deadline. Hopefully, many of you have a Real ID. It's a little easier to travel. if you have one, or a passport or another approved document. But that really was the culmination of several additional requirements placed upon DMV. Prior to that, there was the motor voter requirement. It's very easy to register to vote in California. That's a good thing. But it's extra, it complicates the process of applying for a driver's license. Prior to that, we had AB 60, which expanded the number of drivers in California by offering undocumented immigrants access to driver's license, which great policy. A million extra people came in 1 year to get a driver's license. It was extra work. The infrastructure at DMV didn't always catch up. So when Steve came, there really was a crisis. After he started, he called me. At first, I said, I'm happy where I am. But after a couple of years, the idea of giving back and helping to transform such a vital organization, part of state government, proving that government can be efficient and effective, really appealed to me. So that's why in 2021, in the middle of the pandemic, I left Cisco and came here. And it's been super interesting, and I'm love to share with you some of the great work that's happened at DMV, most of which started before I got here. So some of this is we're in the process of continuing momentum, which forced us all to use things like Zoom and technology and collaborate differently, and some of which remains to be done. So we're in the middle of modernization. I'll speak to that some. So I'm going to share some slides and hope this works. I am an engineer by trade, but it doesn't mean I get everything right. Hopefully you can see that okay. How about a thumbs up from one? Great. Thanks, Alex. Anyway, you know who I am and how I got here. Let's talk about DMV a little more. If I can advance the slides. There we go. Okay, what does DMV do? As I talked about, driver's licenses, identification cards are a key component. Vehicles. We also manage tax collection for vehicles. We register motor vehicles and charge a fee based on the value. So it's a large source of income for the state. We regulate driver safety. So if you are exhibiting unsafe behaviors, we take extra measures to make sure you are good to be on the road. And finally, we regulate the motor vehicle industry, drivers, dealers, salespeople, etc., which is sort of one of the hidden elements of DMV. To do that, we have several divisions that many of you will be familiar with from your departments: administration and services, information technology, very important here at DMV. My belief is DMV was one of the first agencies to computerize a long time ago, which was a great thing. There's no more filing cabinets with index cards about vehicles or drivers, but that infrastructure didn't always keep up with the times. So it's in the process of being modernized. We have a front office, a front door where customers come to get service. We have a retail component, field offices. That's what most people think of when you see the DMV. That's what the television show DMV is about. Many of you may know CBS has a comedy, DMV, and it's really about the driving examiner's experience. There's a large back office. If things don't get handled up front, they end up being taken care of in our headquarters mainly. That includes a mail channel. There's a large web component, online, business to consumer. We're very used to interacting with Amazon or other websites to buy things, and we offer that experience as well. Product management is something that is a relatively new concept here at DMV, but you may be familiar with it from Recoding, Jennifer Polka's excellent book about modernizing the federal government. It's a way of looking at our services and thinking of them as products that customers may not necessarily be choosing, but experience in much the same way as a product they buy. And it really gives us another lens to view how we do things and how to improve. Finally, we have a police force, an investigations division, which has been very interesting to learn about. Recently, you may have seen some news articles about people registering their vehicles in Montana when they're actually here in California. And that's a way to evade taxes. The team has done a great job of looking into that. And that was based on a tip from a customer emailed directly to the director who said, I'm tired of seeing these license plates in my shopping mall. What are you guys doing about it? Well, a couple years later, we have some results to show, and it's just getting started. Some numbers to give you an idea of the scale of DMV. 220 locations includes about 180 of those field offices, as well as investigations, driver safety, occupational licensing occupations. 8,500 employees. A few years ago, when our director gave this talk, he had 10,000 employees on this slide. As part of the recovery strategy from the 2018 low point, we had extra funding for a few years. We had 1,000 extra people to help deal with the Real ID crunch. That was from the general fund. Those folks are gone. We are now able to get our job done with about the number of people we're supposed to have, which is great progress. We get help on the vehicle registration side from AAA, 180 Auto Club locations, both north and south. You can go there for vehicle registration, title transfer, etc. And there's nearly 6,000 business partners generally providing those registration services as well. In a year, there'll be 36 million registration transactions. That's new vehicles, renewals, registration renewals, and people buying and selling vehicles. 34 million people have a driver's license or ID card. More than 20 million of those are Real ID. We went from one of the laggard states, when we started, to above average. By the time the enforcement deadline last May was when TSA started requiring a Real ID at the checkpoint. Happily, if you don't have one, you can still get through, but that made 21 million people go through the extra effort of bringing in a birth certificate or a passport and meeting the federal regulations to prove their identity so that you could get a card with a bear on it, a star on it. The bear has a star. If you look at your card, you'll see that whether you have a Real ID or not, hopefully you all know that. All told, it's about 84 million transactions and $15 billion in revenue brought in for the state, with an expense of about 1.5 billion. So we spend 1.5 billion to bring in 15. That's a pretty good ratio, and we've got to keep doing that so we can fix roads and fund CHP and all the things that that money goes to. The few other, lesser known parts of DMV, we get over 100,000 DUI referrals every year. And you may not know, in addition to the criminal system, there is an administrative system that allows us to suspend those folks immediately. If you get pulled over, I hope you don't, your license will be taken away and you'll be given a temporary license, which can be suspended. Now, due to Constitution, those drivers are entitled to due process. They can have a hearing, and not all of those citations stick. There are those procedures that have to be followed, blood tests, etc. But that's a significant workload and is a big part of helping keep the road safe. Another 100,000 drivers are referred to us each year for physical and mental conditions. Typical case might be your aging parents, people wanting to, quote, take away the keys. A lot of folks refer their family anonymously to us, and those are evaluated fairly. This team that does this has to really understand a lot about various conditions. It's a big workload, and they take it very seriously and do a great job. There's about 10,000 negligent operator cases. This driver safety group is one of the more happy success stories here at DMV. They really took advantage of all the strategies we're trying to accomplish, modernizing their tech systems, getting streamlined in terms of their leadership, centralizing some operations so they can be more effective. So not only do they do the work they've traditionally been doing, in the last 6 months, we started a pilot with CHP where drivers who are caught driving over 100 miles an hour are referred immediately to this group as potential negligent drivers, and the team is able to take action on them and also give them a hearing as required. So that's new work they're taking on with the same number of people. It's really important. Sorry, is there a question or is that just mute?
Sorry, I think somebody is unmuted. Just
Okay,
remind
no
everyone that
problem. Yeah.
please. Thank you.
I mentioned motor voter. That's nearly 8 million people a year asked to register to vote or confirm their registration. Employer pull notice. If you're a company employing a driver, you want to make sure they're a good driver. And so every so often you pull their record and look at it, make sure. A lot of those folks are Lyft and Uber drivers, but any driver of any company is generally enrolled in that program. Occupational licensing, 17,000 vehicle dealers, 80,000 people have an occupational license. Most of them are salespeople, car salespeople, but that also includes things like traffic violator schools and driving instructors, etc. One of the things we do, part of our modernization strategy is it's just paying attention to the operation. As chief operating officer, I need to look at how are things going. This is an example slide from our field division. Again, that's our front door, our retail. When you think of DMV, you drive to the office, you take a number, you get in line. Turns out you don't have to drive to the office to get in line anymore. You can get in line from home. You can wait at home until right before your number's up and then go. However, we do track how long people are waiting. It's not quite where we want to be. 14 minutes if you have an appointment and 42 if you don't. Turns out customers are still pretty happy with that. One of the very first things we did when I started, again, I didn't start it, but it coincided with my start here, was modernizing our customer feedback system. I was very impressed when I got my Real ID that I was asked for my feedback. It was on a postcard. Our current system has a QR code, and you get a text message, and you're asked to give feedback over the internet. That customer sat is surprisingly steady with our wait times, and it's overwhelmingly positive. I check it every Monday morning, and typically we get about 3,000 pieces of feedback from our field, which might have 200, 300,000 people visit in a week. That's 1% rate. It's a pretty good sample. 65% of the people that respond give us the highest possible score. Between 4 and 5% give us a low score. And I read the comments, and it's usually something like, the person was rude to me. I couldn't accomplish what I wanted. It's things that we want to hear about, and it's often things that we can fix. I had a couple comments recently that said, I sent in my vehicle registration and I'm sure it was postmarked before the due date, and I still got charged a late fee. Well, we looked into it, and it might be that we're doing that sometimes. So we need to go figure out, how do we take into account the postmark date, not when we receive the mail? It's a small thing, but even one customer complaining about that can spur us to do a root cause and improve, which is really the culture we're trying to build here. You can see our transaction times. We're trying to make sure things are efficient. When people first started getting Real IDs, it would take up to 26 minutes to complete a Real ID transaction. Now, Real ID transactions, which are counted under deal, are the same as every other driver's license transaction. You got to fill out an application, take a picture, do your thumbprint, pay, do the eye test. 8 minutes is pretty good. If we could get it down to 7 minutes, that increases our capacity tremendously. Vehicle registration, our strategy mostly there is to defer people to other channels. If you need to come into an office to do your vehicle registration, it should be a pretty complicated transaction. It shouldn't be a straightforward transaction. Days to schedule an appointment. Obviously, appointments are popular. We're doing well on vehicle registration, could do better on driver's license. Commercial drive tests. A few years ago, we had supply chain crisis. You may recall this. A lot of it pandemic and pandemic-related things. We put a lot of focus on, can we get drivers into the system, new drivers? Within the last year, some of those drivers became a focus of federal government immigration enforcement. So there's been a lot of news stories about what they call non-domiciled commercial driver's licenses, and the regulations have changed, and we've been under a lot of scrutiny for that. So something that I hadn't thought about, commercial driver's license, much suddenly became a top priority. It's never boring here at DMV. There's always something, and you never know what'll come up next. That's one that we've tried to navigate some pretty challenging, regulatory environment there. Anyway, that's our retail channel, our field. That's probably one you've experienced at least once. Most people, you have to go there to get a license. That's the one transaction in person. Although we're thinking about modernizing the drive test, some states have a little device they put in your car, and the examiner is remote, and they can watch what you're doing without actually being in the car. When you can't resolve your problem, you may call us or go on our website. This is one of the very first groups we modernized. We have a new phone system, Amazon Web Services. We have a new case management system from Salesforce. These agents are, treated like any professional contact center. They take a lot of calls. We try to solve people without talking to them. So if you go on our website, we try to solve the problem. If you call, you'll get an interactive voice response. About 49% of those calls get solved without having to talk to a person. We changed to a callback model. So instead of waiting on hold, we put you in a queue and we call you back when we get a chance. It's a better customer experience and sets a better expectation of the customer. We don't take your call if we can't call you back the same day. So we close the queue. This is one of the areas where we are looking to add AI. AI was mentioned as an area of interest. Probably every department is looking at it. And we have a pilot starting today where we're turning on an AI version of this, call it triage, to get customers a better answer and perhaps enable them to get more personalized information about their driver's license or their vehicle. When customers talk to our people, they're always pretty happy. The agent satisfaction is always the highest. They do a great job, and it's one of the parts of the department that still mostly teleworks. Agents come in 1 week out of 6 to team build and get training, but mostly they can work at home, and it's a pretty good job for a lot of people. Live chat, personally, I don't like the chat experience, but some people do. It's prioritized. You get a very quick response, and it's our more senior agents are allowed to do the chat. If you're on our website and you need help, you can get help very quickly. Average wait time of 41 seconds. And we don't expose this help to everybody, but if you're on our website trying to do something, you need help, you'll get it. First call resolution, very important metric in contact centers, 63%. We want to increase that by mostly empowering our agents and giving them access to more tools. Our biggest channel is our website. And if you are renewing your vehicle, it's the first place most people go. And it's quite an easy experience. You put in your license plate, last 5 of your VIN, and you can pay us. Satisfaction has been steadily increasing. Our goal is a 4.4 rating. We get lots of feedback on the website. This is by far the dominant channel. It's very easy to give feedback, and it's been steadily improving. The team has done a good job of that. 30 million transactions is our goal, and we've exceeded that every year. We've set a goal, and over 1 million a month are vehicle registrations. There's a variety of other transactions: change of address, notice of release of liability, driver's license applications, driver's license renewal. All of those are very common transactions that most people would prefer to use rather than making an in-person visit. We've noticed our mail channel declining as our web channel increases. Mail was the web channel of the 80s or 70s. It was a great innovation to be able to renew by mail. Renew by internet, though, has certainly taken over that. Here's an example of what we look at for our website. Uh, many views, people trying to find information, nearly 7 million users. It's not 100% clear all those are unique users, but it's clear millions of people, individual people, come to our website every month to try to figure out what's going on. What's interesting is more than half of those are using a mobile device. Almost everyone has a smartphone. They come on to do their work, when they're in the waiting room somewhere else, doctor's office, dentist chair, in their car waiting for their kid, who knows what. Um, I prefer the website. I like a bigger screen, but obviously our customers are using their mobile device. Um, I don't know if we could do a survey, but I'm curious how many people have a mobile driver's license. One of the interesting things we did was introduce a wallet. So when you get a mobile driver's license, you put in a wallet. You might use the Apple Wallet. You might use the Google Wallet. You might use a Samsung Wallet, another wallet, but you can also use a DMV wallet. So a DMV wallet can take different kinds of credentials. A driver's license is a credential. You might be able to put your title in there. I understand community colleges now are putting their student IDs in there. One of the great things about the mobile driver's license is it's very secure. If you have that, pretty sure who you are. It's compared to a plastic driver's license, it's almost impossible to counterfeit. So this is something that California has really led the way. We have over 1.5 million active mobile driver's licenses. Much to my chagrin, the one thing you can't do with it is drive. When you drive, you're still required to take your regular driver's license. I'm sure a lot of people don't know that and drive with just their phone. Law enforcement is, going to catch up. I believe in Georgia, you can drive with just your mobile driver's license, but in California, that is not the case yet. But we're very proud of our work on the mobile driver's license, and customers seem to be interested in it, what we've seen so far. Here's a kind of surprising graphic about our modernization journey. We really started with smaller systems on the edge. You see driver safety there, our investigation system. Occupational licensing was done a few years ago. One that might be of interest to this group that we did in 2023 was our disabled parking placard system. That used to be part of our vehicle registration system. And coincidentally, in 2017, there was an audit of DMV that said we needed to do better with vetting people applying for these and making sure they were still required. So a new requirement was added in SB 611 for a renewal process that we had never had before. It used to be, if you got a disabled parking placard, we would keep sending you a new one every 2 years, no matter what. We were sending them to people who had passed away. Was everybody turning those in who wasn't supposed to get them? Probably not. So in 2023, coincidentally with the new renewal process, we modernized our system, moved it to Salesforce, took those records out of our vehicle registration system. It was very clever to use our vehicle registration system for disabled parking placard. As an engineer, my hat's off to the programmers who found a way to do that. But it didn't really make sense from the point of view of it's a different thing and we should treat it differently. That system is easier for our technicians to use. Now customers are renewing every 6 years. And we've been through, well, not quite a complete cycle. We've had 2 renewal cycles, and in 2027, we'll be through the third cycle. 1/3 of the customers have to renew every 2 years. Everybody will have renewed a disabled parking placard then. And we're hoping that will become a credential you can then put in your DMV mobile wallet. There'll still be some kind of thing you display indicia, but that's an example of a modernized system that's a little bit under the radar. We're in the process of vehicle registration that's supposed to go live this year, and our driver's license modernized system has a pilot phase for just ID cards so far, but we expect to be done with this in the next couple of years, and our hope is to be off the mainframe this decade, which will be great news. Some awards we've had, this transformation we've had, turnaround is not going unnoticed. AMVA is the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. Canada and the United States have 60, 65 different state driver license agencies that are members of this, as well as law enforcement. We got awards for our Real ID advertising program. One of our contact center agents got the Agent of the Year, Representative of the Year, which is amazing. We've also got awards from government technology for my DMV and some work we did around the LA fires where we made it more possible to identify total vehicles. Part of the cleanup was to go around to homes that had burned and identify cars that are really unrecognizable. And the data we provided on a mobile app with a tablet really made that a lot easier for the OES workers, CHP, fire, the folks who were going through and doing that work. A little bit about the DMV Advisory Committee. We had a very strong committee back in the day. During the pandemic, like a lot of things that were reliant on in-person communication, it kind of fell apart. A few years ago, we really revitalized it, and this is our mission and vision. I think it's probably similar to that of many of your agencies, but there's an element of customer experience that is maybe unique since we are very customer facing and have a large customer population, including those with disabilities. We like to get feedback from ourselves about our services. We're all drivers. Most of us have vehicles. And we get that feedback. If we're not drivers, we have ID cards. So we're using our services and like to get feedback from employees. This shows that we really had a pretty good turnaround. We submitted a nomination for DAC of the Year. I don't know who won, but we're going to keep trying because I think we have some really, really good work here. And it's shown in some of the metrics. One of the things we track is our percentage of employees with disabilities. This went down for a couple reasons. One, again, was those 1,000 people we hired. We don't always do a great job of identifying employees with disabilities when they're hired. We're waiting for the results of our last survey. We have a survey that coincides with National Disability Employment Awareness Month in October, and we do expect this number to continue to improve as we go forward. Team's done a great job in this turnaround. Some of their focus areas for this fiscal year is awareness, building our staff understanding. Some of that feedback we get, customer feedback, is around things like access. It was hard for me to stand, or the chairs weren't in the right place. We do have counters in every office that are ADA compliant, but they need to be available. Parking is another common complaint. Field offices, again, with 180 field offices, 220 locations, it's hard to be consistent. And we are endeavoring to make sure everybody understands how to make our services accessible. Visibility and recognition, part of being able to come and talk, hear, tell stories. We're trying to do a better job of highlighting work that we have done and remains to be done. So that's a little bit about our DAC and a little advertisement for DMV as an employer. We'd love to see you. We have openings, as you may know, and always looking for top talent. If you want to be part of a transformation, a winning team, come to DMV. And with that, I'll stop my presentation and open the floor for questions.
All right, thank you, Ed. That was an excellent presentation. I saw a slew of questions coming through. I will go ahead and I'll read some of them. The first one, just generally, is there going to be the presentation slides available for attendees? That I saw a question that was asking.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have any problem sharing them. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And from the audience in the chat, says great information. Do you have information flyers that can be shared with their agency, which is CWDB? Sorry, I'm not sure which agency that stands for. They said they like to promote DMV online and other tips that you shared in this presentation.
Oh, let's see. Flyers is not something Uh, we have a lot of, we do, I mean, if you go to our field office, there are so many handouts. The first thing you'll see will be a table with flyers and brochures. And one of the things we've tried to do is make those available online. I can certainly see what we have, um, but we've tried to get away from the physical production of paper, although we still produce tons, to the, links and so on, QR codes. Um, I'll be happy to talk with our OPA about how we want to share with other agencies. It's a good avenue. And I think we could do better with, expanding our customer feedback internally. We have 8,500 employees. Why not get feedback from all state employees as, quote, insiders, if you will? I like that idea. Um, yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna mute that person. Maybe that's it. Yeah, it was. Okay, perfect. I see another question in here that I've put down here from Board of Equalization. They said, loving the DMV info, and they're asking, what is DMV doing to accommodate people with disabilities? And then a second follow-up question, asking, what is DMV doing to increase employment accessibility for people with disabilities?
Right. Well, I think the example of contact center and telework is one that really is a great opportunity for someone with a disability. I when I worked at Cisco, I worked with other agents who were visually impaired. I worked with software engineers who were visually impaired, and it was amazing how the technology enabled them to interact with people, uh, seamlessly. We need to make sure our internal tools are accessible. Of course, we spend a lot of time on our facilities, making sure they are, uh, you know, compliant and accessible to folks. I think the larger problem is really customers. We do get, again, trying to move things online. There's a fair bit of work that's required to make sure screen readers work, for example, and that it's not, required to be fully able to take advantage of these. One of the things that's been a little bit of a conversation is around this disabled parking placards. Generally speaking, people apply in person to get those. And our goal would be that you could apply online. There's a bit of hassle involved with getting a doctor's signature. Again, that often requires a visit to the doctor. It's a wet signature on a piece of paper. So I think there's an element of modernization which does make things more accessible for free, if you will. There is often pushback. When we go online with something, a common concern is, well, what about seniors? Seniors don't have access to the internet. And I have a senior identification card, so I can qualify as a senior. Our director often reminds people he's a quote senior, and we worked in the internet industry for many decades. So the idea that seniors don't have the internet is somewhat offensive to us. And I think that's a good lesson is we don't want to make assumptions about our customers or employees. We want to hear from them about what works for them and what doesn't. So that's really part of our modernization is to just listen. And so if I would say the number one thing we're doing to make things uh, available to people is just listen. What do they need? What doesn't work? And fix it.
And then another question, just generally speaking, because there's a lot of questions and I don't think we'll have time to get to all of them. Is there an email address that anyone here that is attending could send, or anybody in general could send disability related comments or questions to that could be fielded by DMV?
Yeah, certainly. I'm happy to take those emails. Edward.Swenson@DMV. The director and I get emails from customers routinely, and we respond to everyone. Uh, there's also our OCR, our EEO team. Uh, they review the feedback that we get from customers for disability related issues and discrimination type issues. Lee Wan, I believe, is on the call. She's our head and done a great job of reinvigorating that team. She's put an email in the chat. Thank you, Lee Wan. So yes, please send it. I'm happy to, I probably won't solve it myself. I'll probably forward to somebody, but I do like to see them. So happy to get those.
All right, thank you, Ed. Bobby, do you have any questions or see any questions I may have missed?
Yeah, looks like there was one question, something about pregnancy and disability placard. Uh,
My goodness. Do you know my wife and daughters? They have been bugging me about this. Ever since I told them about disabled parking placards, they said pregnant women should be able to get this like in the last trimester or the first 3 months after the child born. And I'm like, call your assemblyman, call your senator, call your, yeah, it makes sense, but it's
Mhm.
not in the statute. So, yes, please. Great idea. Is that what the question was?
Yeah, so the question had to do, I was pregnant last year, found out that you can no longer get temporary disabled parking during
Hmm.
pregnancy. Does that mean that even with a doctor's note, person, in this
Yeah,
condition, they could
that's
not
an
get it?
interesting point. Yeah, I think the doctor has to
Hmm.
label it a mobility issue.
Right.
So I don't think pregnancy is specifically called out as a condition,
Hmm.
enabling one to get this. So I think it's a very subtle, uh, point. So
Right.
I believe the doctor would have to see it as a mobility. And I know my doctor's a pediatrician. She follows the rules, to the T. She probably wouldn't sign it. But yeah, I love this comment from Dorena. I think it does depend on the doctor. That's probably one of the things that could be improved. But there's definitely the feedback I get is pregnancy by itself should be considered such a condition.
The other question that came, you were just promoting DMV as an employer to come and work for you. And someone said, I'm a former DMV employee with 10 years of experience. I would love to return one day if there were more telework opportunities available other than the field office. Perhaps you can discuss. I know you touched on the fact when we asked you
Sure.
about disability, telework
Yep.
is a one of the component of bringing people back to
Great. Yeah.
employment who otherwise would not have that opportunity.
Yeah, I will say it's been very much job dependent, the needs of the role. A couple of years ago, the governor wanted hardly anyone to telework, and the exceptions were fewer and far between. We took sort of a middle ground, depending on the job and how successful people were in, I think, contact center. It didn't make sense to make people come in. Uh, ISD, our Information Services Division, very high telework percentage. Driver safety and occupational licensing have field offices if you like in-person work, but not in Sacramento. One of the things our director says a lot is there's talent everywhere in the state of California, and we want to be able to take advantage of that. So, yeah, I think as we modernize some of our systems, more jobs will lend themselves to telework. There are still many of our operations jobs that paper-based, it's easier to centralize. But as we get off that and become more digital, I expect that to expand.
Great. Thank you so much. You mentioned also that the disability parity rate within DMV is something that you attribute to new workers hiring a lot of people, and perhaps they're not responsive to filling out the survey or the question. What can you do as an employer to bring about a cultural change that will perhaps make it easier for people to answer that, if that's what you think is the root cause of the lower
Right. No, no, I
rate?
think I think the team has already done a lot of work in the survey to educate, and it's been only a couple years, and I expect that to continue to improve. I think in the hiring process is where I'm also I think there's an opportunity for outreach, and that's something that is within our talent acquisition team's purview. I do think the telework is closely aligned with that.
Mhm.
So definitely an area of continued work for us. But I think we're on the right track.
Great. Do we have any more questions for Ed? This has been such a wonderful experience having a resource like DMV Authority come in and talk to us about all different subjects. I was particularly impressed by the fact when you said fiscally you bring in like or you invest 1.5 billion and you bring in 15 billion. Is that true?
Right. Yeah. Our budget is about 1.5 billion. If you think about it, that's all the employees, about 2/3 of that is people. But there's also buildings and leases and electricity and
Mm-hmm.
IT services. Our goal is to make it run like a business efficiently, and keep an eye on things so things don't get out of whack. If we're not watching these things, it's easy for things to continue on the way they were and ignore new technology, new ways of doing things. Um, I think we're in good shape, but there's still work to do on the infrastructure side, and I'm happy with our culture shift, and that's ongoing, and that'll be the thing that really carries us through. Is that people want to do? Government can be efficient and competent, and I don't know how many of you saw Zootopia. The first one. They had a pretty funny scene about DMV. I love The Simpsons. Patty and Selma were, the butt of many jokes. But Zootopia 2, they cut that scene. They cut a DMV scene apparently. And honestly, the CBS sitcom isn't very funny. It's more of a regular workplace comedy. So anyway, we like to have a sense of humor about it, but also, we want to be looked up to as an efficient agency, and there's no reason we can't be.
Well, thank you, Ed. This has been wonderful. And again, if we didn't make it clear, the director, Mr. Gordon, was supposed to join us, but he's in a budget meeting today. So he gave us even a better representation and replacement.
Sure. You're very kind. Thank you for the time and your attention. I really appreciate the chance to come and share our work.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.